So I think I want to start off with kind of it's a bit more serious of a thing. Ted Lasso.
Best show ever.
It really. So what do you enjoy about the show Ted Lasso?
So, like, my husband watched all of it, and he's like, you have to watch it. And my problem with shows is that I'll turn it on before I go to bed and I'll fall asleep.
Right. Right. I'm the
And
same way.
so he made me. He's like, let's just watch it like together on the couch, and it's just so heartfelt. You know, you feel for every character. You know, you really like minus one. We won't say that, but
Are you talking about towards the end of the
yes,
season? Because we cared about him all the way up to the pretty close to there.
Right, right. But you know, you enjoy, you know, the heartfelt nature of Ted. You know that he's always looking for the positive, and
Right.
especially in, you know, COVID times, it's like hard to find any positive
Right.
sometimes, and so just that, you know, way to find the positive in anything, and his
Right.
little clever puns are, you know, they always
Right.
make me smile. So
I remember when the show came out. So Dee and I have like three lists. Shows I'll like that she won't like. She
Right.
has shows that she likes that I won't like, and then the ones we watch we
right,
think each other will like. And I remember seeing it and thinking, I like. Is it Jason Sudeikis?
yeah, Jason Sudeikis.
Right. I'm like I like him. I'm like, but I read the little description in Apple, and I was like, it's the coach trying to make the team lose.
Yeah,
Kind of thing. Like that's been done.
Right,
I wasn't
right.
too excited about it. Didn't think she'd like it, and I watched. I was maybe like 10 minutes in. I'm like, we're gonna love this.
Right.
It's so different. Well, actually, I want to. So I've asked you the question, or gave you, well, like what gives you hope for the future, and we'll address your answer at
Yeah.
the end. But I've made a challenge to myself to come up with a new answer for every podcast.
right,
And Ted Lasso gives me hope for the future.
right.
Not, it's so different than other shows that are out.
Yeah.
Like comedies. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've seen a comedy that I really liked, and you know you get the laugh tracks and the
Right.
and even then they're not positive characters, and he's so lovable.
So lovable.
Like
I mean, every aspect of him, you know, the biscuits,
right,
you know, just the effort he puts into everybody, that everyone feels his love, and you can't hate that.
which the second season was tough. Was
Yeah, the second season.
because he's down on
Yeah.
himself. He's still trying to be that, but you know he's down on him. Well, actually, you kind of know he's down on himself the whole time because he's
Right, right.
he's divorcing his wife, you know,
Right.
separating, and yeah, I love. So Roy Kent is my favorite, and my favorite scenes are him with the little kids,
Yeah,
and he's swearing. Like if somebody told me my favorite scene would be a rough guy swearing at kids, like, but there's something about, and they just know they don't. His little niece that doesn't
Yeah,
take him serious,
yeah.
like yeah, whatever. Like she
Right.
doesn't get all worked up.
right.
It's and I love also the characters. I find out like shows that have an arc. The characters have an arc. They
Yeah,
grow.
yeah, right.
They change towards the end, and you know you see it in Ted. You see it in the owner. You see. I mean,
Right.
yeah. There's so many great characters.
Right, and that's the thing with the show is like every character you feel like invested in them, and you want the best for them. You know, even Jamie, you know, you're kind of like, oh, he's kind of a pompous character, but you know, you really deep down, you really like him. So
Yeah.
I
And
think Roy's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and but the show at the end leaves you with just such a good, happy vibe, and I think I'm hoping that the popularity of that show, that there's more shows with positivity and stuff like that coming out,
Right.
and I also, what gives me hope is that there's a thirst for that too. I think people, you know, with so much negativity in the world across the board, like to have something just so positive.
Right. It needs it. We need it, right?
Yeah,
Like.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So did Ted Lasso influence you at all in your coaching?
I didn't actually really watch it until later, but when I was running this afternoon, you know, I was thinking about this podcast, and
Right.
I was thinking that, you know, the most important thing in my interactions with my students and my athletes coaching is that they know that I care about them, that like I embody this positivity to them, and that they know, and no matter what, that they care, that I care about them.
Right.
And, I see that in Ted. Maybe I did get that from Ted.
Right.
But, like,
right.
it's important, in Mr. Veach and I have always talked about, in order to get, like, product out of our students, they have to know that we care, because if they don't think we care, then they're like, whatever. And the same thing with coaching, if they don't know that we have their back and that we're for the best for them, they won't care as
right.
much. So it's maybe indirectly,
right.
Maybe, like, now thinking about it like at a bigger picture, sure, yes.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if I can.
Was it like muscle fatigue, or was it like discomfort?
I think it was mental. It was just mental, like, just like, holy cow, this is, like, hard. And then I did it, and for walking as much as I did, I ran 3:32, I think, so I was like, oh, okay.
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, so I was pretty happy with that, because I walked.
Wow.
I walked a lot.
I'm blown away. That's fast.
And I found that the weird thing was, when I was done, the next 2 days I felt depressed. It was a weird. I've never had any mental illness or anything like that. I was depressed. I literally would go home after school and just, like, kind of sit there, not say anything. And my husband got worried, and he looked it up, and it's like after Christmas, it's like that huge slide down, and there, for your first marathon there, and it was a weird feeling. Like, I've never felt like that. And it only lasted a couple days, but it was weird to me, because I've never had that depression, and I'm like, holy cow, people that struggle with this is hard.
I totally know what you're feeling. I know. Part of it is, I think, for me, is it's a ramp up. I'm training for this thing, and I'm building up to it, and then it's done. It's like, oh, what's next? And then your body doesn't feel like it normally does either.
Right.
And so you have this, oh, what's my goal? So I tend to jump into my next thing now.
Because you need to overcome that. Yeah.
But I definitely feel, and I'm somebody that, I would describe myself very close to Ted Lasso. Like, I'm not as witty, and I don't bake anywhere near as well. But I tend to be a very positive person, maybe to a fault. I'm maybe too trusting and too.
Yeah.
But I prefer to go through the world being positive, and I definitely notice I get down. It's like, and that's such a foreign feeling for me. But like you said, 2 or 3 days, I have to, or even. It's funny because, so I ran my first marathon, which I'm guessing you ran MDI.
No, I ran the relay, actually.
Oh, gotcha. I ran my first marathon was MDI about 10, 12 years ago, and I was flying, felt really good. I kind of know what the Boston Qualify kind of ish time. So halfway through, I'm right where I wanted to be, and Dee was like popping in, the places she could see me.
Yeah.
And about mile 18 is the last time I saw her, and I was feeling great, and then it just.
Yeah, well, that's a hard stretch. I know where that is.
And I had done lots of 18. I think 18 was kind of the training things I looked at. Like 18 is about where you want to train to. You don't want to overdo the distance. And it just, the wheels fell apart. Like I've never had joint pain whatsoever. Yeah. My joints all hurt. Yeah. Everything hurt. I was walking so much, and then. Like 2 miles to go, I basically walked most of that last mile, and then you get the last mile, and there's so many people on the sides of the street, and I'm so embarrassed that I'm walking. Right. So now I'm trying to run, and now you can hear the bell, the cowbells, and I end up running to the end. That last mile, I'm like, I'm gonna run the last mile, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And I got to D at the finish line, and I just bawled my eyes. Yeah. Like I've never like had this just. Overwhelming, just can't control the cry coming out of me. I was like, and I never experienced pain like this, and I'm like, never again, D, never ever again.
But then you signed up for more, so.
And now I'm trying to run 100 miles.
Right.
Like, it's, but that was the deepest I've ever had to dig. I've always been one that, like, playing basketball, playing football, like I was the guy that could go harder or longer than other people. But I'd never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, there's nothing you can't describe.
And I was like 5.5 hours. I was nothing like you. Even though part of me thinks the length of time you're out there, at some point, that becomes, you've been out there for 5 hours, even though compared to 3.
Right.
But yeah, that was shocking. And a big thing for me, I think, I didn't, I'm trying to think of my next marathon. I think it was Millinocket, and I maybe like 22 hit the wall. And I was like, maybe I just can't figure this thing out. I think it had to do a lot with nutrition. Since I've kind of switched to more fasting
Yeah.
and running fasted, that my body, the idea is to be more fat dependent
Yeah.
and less carb dependent.
Yeah.
And since I've kind of trained like that, now I've done 50 marathons this year. I mean,
Right.
not like on my own, just distances, not
Yeah,
races.
yeah, yeah.
That's made a huge difference for me. And I mentioned my cousin he started a podcast. The first started this whole thing off for
Yeah.
me. And he's like, "Have you heard of ultra marathons?" I'm like, "What is that?" Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, "I can't do 26. How am I gonna do?
Yeah.
How am I gonna do 50?" Like, but then once I started aiming for the longer distances and started running longer distances,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden 26
Seems like nothing.
became easier.
Right.
Yeah.